Søren Møller, CTO and owner of Greybird. I have so much been looking forward to this conversation about AI within the aviation industry. So first of all, thank you for taking this time to have this conversation.
Thank you. Well, me too. It's always exciting to discuss interesting areas.
Yeah. But I was thinking, before we go into the entire AI part, could you just spend a minute or two to talk about Greybird, who you are and what you are?
Yeah, of course. One of my favorite topics. So Greybird is a flight academy that focuses only on educating commercial pilots. We were founded back in 2012 and have grown considerably since then. We are now in Denmark and Sweden. We have 4 bases and we fly in Denmark and Spain.
So it's an international operation?
Yes, it is. And it's actually been one of the cornerstones in establishing Greybird has been the focus on building an international training environment, because I feel that it lacks in the industry. It's quite commonly agreed that working as a pilot is a very international thing. It's an international career.
Absolutely.
For that reason, I find it strange that almost without exception, flight training is ultra local. It always happens at one spot, typically in an area distant from large cities. There's a lot of good reasons for that.
Right.
But so you have to travel to nowhere and stay there for 2 years and become a pilot, and then you have a lot of experience flying around in a very local area, and from there you go directly to flying in all of Europe.
So the way that you have organized Greybird is different from others.
Yeah, I would say so. We do a lot to try to expose our students to an international environment. So they have teachers from many different countries, and they fly in at least 2 different countries. But we fly in most of Europe, actually, because we also fly back and forth between Spain and Denmark. Right. And we have these training bases where theory is being taught in many different areas. For now 4, but we are.
So you have theory bases else from where you're flying?
Yes, so in Stockholm, Gothenburg, and Copenhagen, our bases are strictly theory, and we're expanding the theory part. So we are going to new countries in the coming time.
So pilot students don't need to go to small cities, because that's typically where you're flying, right? Because
yeah, absolutely.
So that's where the airports are located for. Typically, flight schools are.
Yeah, where you actually can fly, because
exactly. You cannot fly out of the super big airports, so that's where the big cities are.
Yeah, there's this conundrum that many people live, and maybe especially young people tend to live in larger cities. Yeah. And there's also usually a huge airport in a large city, but because the airport is huge, you can't really train there.
No.
So you have to go to another place to fly, and so do we. We fly in rural areas, but that doesn't mean that our students can't be taken into our education where they live, in the city they live in, and as part of the education we take them to different areas and do flight training there.
Yeah. So now they can actually stay at the big cities where they may more or less come from and take the theory there, and then they can fly from the more airports where they're more rural areas.
So that's one area where we differ a lot from what's most common.
Interesting. Okay, well then this is a talk about AI. So first and foremost, as a business owner and a person who's developing a business, do you see AI as something that is coming, or is it something you're taking seriously, or is it just a fluke?
A fluke it's not, that's for sure. I think it's to be taken very serious. Every now and then, I don't know if it's once per decade or so, but every now and then there is a new technology emerging that dramatically changes a lot of things. I think this time everything. There's also a tendency that new technologies enter the market and the business faster and faster, and I think this is no exception. This is going to be tremendously faster than we have ever seen before. I actually think that we've never seen a technology that's going to change everything so much as can be expected from AI.
Yeah, so it's across industries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's also it's changing areas that are not used to being changed. Normally, a technology takes away simple tasks, and so an emerging technology makes relatively simple things easier or completely automated. But this changes that. This alters very, very complex tasks, and therefore also affects complicated jobs.
Right. Is it something that you are using personally?
Yes,
not, not talking to business, we're going into that, but are you using it personally as well?
Absolutely. I was thinking about it yesterday. I think I'm at a point now where I'd say 95% of tasks I start doing, I'm somewhere in the process, I'm utilizing AI.
So more or less you're going AI first. Can this help me perform better, optimize my or something?
Or just discussing an idea or discussing a solution or trying to get feedback on what could the downside be of doing this to solve that. It's really, really effective.
Right. Interesting. So going into aviation and AI, if we just look at aviation from a broader perspective, and then we can go into the more schooling area afterwards. Now your school that is developing pilots, do we have pilots in 20 years or X time? Or how do you see AI in general evolve into aviation? Do you have any?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah?
I think, the short answer to your question is yes, I think we have pilots in 20 years to come.
Yeah.
But like other aspects of work, I think AI is going to affect how it will be to be a pilot. And I think AI is going to, I don't want to use the phrase take away jobs, but it's going to alter jobs. And it's going to alter some jobs. I don't think pilot jobs, but it's going to alter some jobs to the extent where the jobs isn't recognizable. I still think 20, 30, 40 years from now, we will have humans flying. I don't think we'll have humans driving. And there's a huge difference. It could seem similar. But from a data collection point of view, there's a huge difference. So there are several barriers why I don't think that the human in the cockpit is going to be replaced by AI. I absolutely think AI is going to be in the cockpit, but I think it's going to be there like a third pilot. So it's going to be a person, if you like, that you could converse with, that can help you, that can come with suggestions, that can do calculations, that can just know a lot of details about stuff that is not necessarily on everybody's top of mind if something rare happens. But going back to why isn't it replacing pilots when it is replacing chauffeurs, if you like?
Yeah.
There are several things. There is actually a technological barrier. When you're driving a car, if you don't do small adjustments every, 10 seconds driving, sometimes more, some sort of accident is going to happen. Not dramatically, but you'll drive off the road or you'll drive into a small barrier. So if you constantly have to do small things to keep doing what you are doing, driving. Yeah. That's not the case when you're flying. Aircrafts are already flying automated. They're flying on an autopilot, it's called, but it's not an AI autopilot. It's just regulation, actually. It's just a computer that keeps track or keeps an altitude or go in a specific direction for a certain period of time. And that's doable because there is so much space. There is
infinite space more.
Exactly. There is a long way to the next obstacle, which might be an aircraft. Yeah. And that's not the case when you drive on a road, not even in a rural area. The road is narrow. You have to stay on the right side in our part of the world of the road. Yeah. And there's a lot of obstacles, sometimes unplanned obstacles in the middle of the road you have to go around.
Millions of scenarios that can suddenly just...
So when you drive, I'd say somewhere between every second and every 10 seconds, you potentially give input to an AI computer that can learn why what you did was necessary. It's very different from flying. Yeah. Also, we have millions and millions and millions of cars driving. Already now we have, I think, 7 million cars collecting data, training AI to drive. There don't exist millions of aircraft. We have tens of thousands of aircraft. So the data collection is infinite smaller. It's smaller probably by a factor of 1,000 in numbers, and I would say more than that in terms of event. So the technological barrier to train AI to fly is very high. But probably a more important barrier is the lack of financial reason to do the replacement of a pilot. When you take a chauffeur out of a car, you remove, depending on the area, anywhere between 30 and 55% of the cost of driving the car. If you take 2 pilots out of a cockpit of an airliner, you may remove 2% of the cost of flying the airliner. So there is no real financial reason to do it. And also, if you did it, at some point, as a passenger, you would have to choose between the airline who replaced pilots with AI and the airline who didn't. Right. And if the cost reduction is 2%, you could choose a ticket that's worth, let's say, 100 euros with pilots, or you could save 2 euros and only pay 98 euros and fly without pilots. I think that's going to be a tough barrier to cross also. Yeah. But I'm confident that AI will be part of future cockpits.
So everything around the pilot, you could say, to support him, both from a planning point of view, pre-flight.
Yeah.
There could be a lot of savings in there, but also in the cockpit with decision making, all sorts of stuff.
And troubleshooting.
Troubleshooting, stuff happening throughout the flight that could help you make better decisions. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when weather acts differently than anticipated, when the aircraft acts differently than anticipated, then the AI can be very good at coming up with suggestions or to get feedback from. Say, I think we should do this. What is the worst that could happen? And AI is very good at doing that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be there, but I don't think as a flying pilot.
Okay. Well, that's good for you as a school.
It is. It is.
And going to the school then, AI and Greybird and teaching pilots. Is that do you see AI coming into your school?
Yes.
Are you planning it something you already are as an owner taking so seriously? It's something you're starting to put in your strategies or planning. How are we obtaining AI into our organization?
Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, it's already being used now by the single person doing a task, some more than others, and for now it's not very structured. It's some persons are better at taking in new technologies than others, and for now we do training, we do try to help people start using this new tool to get more efficient, but we haven't yet started a really structured way of implementing AI into the company. We have just started a strategy process for Greybird. And so we have defined a number of must-win battles and some areas that we're going to cover for the next 3-year period. And one of them is defining an AI strategy that's going to be finished by the end of first quarter next year. Okay. So that's going to tackle how do we structure the implementation of AI and how do we measure what value we gain from implementing AI. It is a tremendously powerful tool, but it's also a tool that you can spend a lot of time on and not necessarily extract a lot of value from.
But you could say you're taking it so seriously now that you actually decided to put it as part as your strategy.
Yes. So for sure, but I think in general, in terms of education, I'd say in terms of any education, AI is going to massively affect how people are getting taught anything. Well, AI is very good at conversation. It's good at discussing a problem. It's good at explaining something.
Yeah. In different ways.
In different ways, and it's also fairly good at understanding where you are. So it's fairly good at understanding when you ask the question you ask. What's the underlying reason for asking the question? So I think AI can grow, not in the form it has today, but it will grow. And I think it's possible to create tools around AI that can make it capable of tutoring, so of helping people faster along a track or keeping people on a track. Yeah. And if you have a lot of structured data, it's also possible to feed that structured data about the student into AI and use that as ground for feedback. Yeah. So, for instance, how are you studying? How much are you studying? When are you studying? And what is your gain from studying? And if you studied differently 2 weeks ago, were your gain better or worse? And if it was better, shouldn't we go back to studying that way then? Yeah. So this is what a person could do, but that would require a tutor per student, and that's not doable financially. No. So I think this is not tomorrow, but I think it could be 1 to 2 years from now. I think systems can do this, and that is absolutely going to change how people study and learn. Yeah.
But the great thing is that you're actually at a place now where you actually are taking it as part of your strategy, meaning that Greybird will be so much further ahead than some of your competitors, I think, in terms of just imagining having that tutor sitting by your side to help you specifically in a year's time.
I think I see kind of AI as, if you try to visualize what AI is, it's like a train that has started to move. Yeah. It's still going slow. It doesn't maybe seem like it's going slow, but it's still moving relatively slow, let's say that, but it's accelerating, and it's accelerating at an exponential pace. Yeah. So now it's slow, tomorrow it's slightly more than slow. Yeah. The day after tomorrow it's going to be going towards fast. The day after that is going to be fast. The day after that is going to be really fast. Yeah. So if AI seems difficult now, it's going to be impossible in a year. So if you don't get on the train now, you're really going to hurt yourself when you try to step on something that's moving so fast.
Yeah. And that's a good analogy.
I think it is, and I think also this is, if there ever existed an S-curve, this is an S-curve, and we are at the absolute bottom of the S-curve. So the acceleration is not just going to continue; it's going to increase. So the acceleration is going to increase. So the difference from last year to now in AI capabilities is extreme, but from now going a year forward is probably equal. The difference there is going to be equal to what if you look 5 years back, and a year from that is going to be the same for some years now. It's very, very difficult to see more than a few months into the future, I think.
You're constantly being surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually...
Is this possible now?
yeah, exactly. And I think to a degree it's easier to envision how will 20 years from now look. Because then you'll have AGI and we'll be pets of AI and we'll be, if you like that analogy, but you'll definitely have a digital mind that knows everything about everything and that can do all calculations and then can foresee practically all foreseeable events. But the stretch from here to there, how fast it's going to go is extremely difficult to foresee.
It is. We have talked about a lot of AI, and I can also hear that I wouldn't say you're positive, but you see the realism in it. But there's also a flip side to a coin as always. Where do you see that with AI? What's the negative sides, the more be mindful sides?
Yeah, I think there are quite a few actually. First of all, any extremely powerful tool or technology is powerful and therefore dangerous. So if it's not handled correctly, it can also harm you. But I think one of the easy places to get lost in AI is that it's so capable, and it's very easy to, if you worked like with AI for a few hours a day for a relatively short period of time, you get very used to it always being correct. But it does hallucinate. It does invent things. It does. If you ask for Newton's 5 laws, it's going to give you Newton's 5 laws, although they don't exist. Yeah. So complacency, I think, is the best comparison. It's very easy not to be aware of the potential errors coming from AI. And in some industries, that may not be a problem. If you ask AI to create the 5 best text to hit 5 different markets in a marketing setup, worst case is that it didn't go so well. But if you implement it in aviation and you base your calculations on AI and it's completely wrong, you could kill somebody. Yeah. So I think that you have to view AI like an exceptionally capable baby. So it's really, really bright. It's really intelligent. It knows a lot of stuff, but it's immature. So it doesn't know its own limitations. It's not aware when it's potentially wrong. It assumes that it's right. And you can almost get into an argument with it about stuff that's wrong, and it can claim for quite a long time that it's right, until you kind of bring proof, and then it can, well, I'm sorry. So that's absolutely a drawback, that it is so capable, but at the same time it's not aware of its own limitations. So you have to surround AI with capable people. So that's one of the potential errors, is that it seems so capable, so you can surround it with not that capable people. And that's potentially dangerous, I think.
What about now you're also a business owner yourself and you have employees, and perhaps you are associated with other of your same kind, you could say, of business owners. What's the word in terms? Are they afraid that either their business is going sour in 5 years, or they have to, or when they are pulling in AI or taking it as a part of their strategy, do you see that it can elevate their business and they don't need to lay off people in 5 years, but they can actually increase? You can use them for new things and put it as a I think it varies a lot, actually. I think that's one of the interesting things to follow right now, is how different people are updated on. So even if you consider business owners as a group, that some of us are very aware and follow this almost at the bleeding edge of the technology, and others still see it as just a party trick and haven't really considered how this, under any circumstances, can affect the business. And for some of them, it's going to be difficult. Awakening.
Yeah. I think there is kind of a disconnect between where the technology actually is and where even business owners' perception of where the technology is. Not all, but some. And that's not a new thing. When streaming came along, and quite fast became fairly capable. There was quite a lot of companies that was living off providing, for instance, video content physically to people on the different schemes, and they completely ignored that streaming was the thing. They laughed at it and said, but it's never going to work, and you need quality of service, and it's never going to work, and it's never going to work, and it's never going to work, and then they died. And it happened more or less overnight. And overnight back then was maybe 3 years. But 3 years is a relatively short term if you completely have to overturn your business.
Definitely.
And then
no time.
No, it's not. And then came along the smartphone, and we had some giants of companies producing electronic devices that was laughing at the phone with no buttons, and completely forgot that it was capable of doing software, and that a phone was a byproduct of what it was capable of. And they don't really produce that many phones anymore. So this has happened before. When you have a new technology that speaks to the masses, don't ignore it. It's dangerous.
So here at the end, with that in mind, what will be your advice to people listening to this, business owners or AI specialists, whoever is actually listening to this?
Well, I say maybe business owners in particular, but people in general having a job is be interested. Play with it, find out what it can do for you, and no matter what you do, it can do something for you. It's not dangerous to play with. But like any other tool, it takes some time to get good at. You don't just pick up a guitar and are able to play it. So if you open up any kind of generative AI and start using it and think it's rubbish, it's probably you. The guitar is fine, but you haven't learned to play it yet. No. And it's going to be faster, it's going to be better, and it's going to be better at understanding. So it's going to be easier to play the next generation of guitar. But if you start playing guitar when everybody plays guitar, you're still going to be a beginner. So I think it's very, very important to be acquainted with and updated with the technology. And I see very, very few professional jobs where it won't be able to make you more efficient. So there's a lot of people talking about AI taking away jobs. It might come to that. It probably will come to that. I think what will happen initially, and it'll happen to a high extent, is that people using AI is going to take away jobs from people who isn't using AI, for the simple fact that they're more efficient.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Søren Møller, thank you so much for taking your time to having this conversation. I think it's been super interesting to learn about.
Thanks a lot.